Um, okay, number 5 is by the artist Piet Mondrian. I'm not even sure if I pronounced that correctly. Um, and the painting is Broadway Boogie Woogie. This is the painting. Um, Going back and listening to the music. So this music, it's fun. It's good music. It evokes. Let me turn this off because I can't concentrate while listening. This music evokes the grid pattern of New York City. I'm sorry, the painting evokes the grid pattern of New York City, the blinking lights, the traffic, the hustle, and the title alludes to the jazz style known as boogie woogie, which is a kind of music that has a constant shuffling rhythm, the way it went do 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 do, and it also has frequent exuberant interjections from brass instruments. So you hear, let me turn it on again. That right there, da 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 da, and that I sort of relate to these things here that just sort of stick out of the texture. Da da, something like that. Whoops. I didn't mean to do that. Close that. And it also sort of reminds me of honking horns, like the brass interjections sound like car horns, which goes along with the sort of city motif of the grid of New York City. Okay, moving on. Number 6. Okay, so this is an artist, George Braque, and the painting is Homage to J.S. Bach, who, of course, is a great composer, Johann Sebastian Bach. And the recording we have is our very own Australian Chamber Orchestra's Richard Tagnetti playing a fugue for solo violin. Now, a fugue is similar sort of to a round, like row, row, row your boat. When you row, row, row your boat gently down the stream, and then the next person goes row, row, row your boat, and you sing it with people that continually come in at different points with the same theme. And a fugue is a little bit like that. If you, let's go back to the beginning of that for a second. If we go back to the beginning, you'll hear this melody, and then again, da 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 da. So it's the same little motive, little phrase, little musical phrase that gets repeated and moved around the violin in different places. And in this painting, you'll see there's something similar about that. Like you see little pieces of the violin that are just sort of in fragments all around. And a fugue basically it's like a musical architecture. It has layers of things, and I think this painting also has layers of things. Yeah, it sort of layers melodies on top of each other as the painting layers pieces of the violin and wood on top of each other. Yeah, there's more information on the bottom if you want to read that. Okay, moving along. Okay, this is my painting actually. I started painting last year when I started doing this curriculum because I got interested in it. And so basically, let's see, can we make that bigger? No, I guess we can't make that bigger. I practice scales every morning, and when I practice scales, I put the metronome on. The metronome is something that keeps the beat. I put the metronome on at 60 beats per second, And when I hear a note, I sometimes see a color in my head. So all of these things here represent notes. And I start playing my scale with 4 beats to each note. And then I get faster and faster and faster and faster and faster. So this shows you, and here's me playing my scale. There's the first note, the second note, the third note, the fourth note, and so on and so forth. And it gets faster and faster. So this was my painting of my scale. And then I with my right hand, which is my bow hand here, I decided to show how the sweep of the bow hand. So after I painted all of these pictures, not pictures, after I painted all of these colors, then I swept through with the brush to show the sweep of my arm on the string. So that's my little humble painting. And then we get to example 8, which is quite cool. It's another piece by Johann Sebastian Bach. And this artist, Stephen Malinowski, again, I'm not sure if I pronounced that correctly, he makes visual representations of music. So listen for a second. So the questions here that you can ask your students is how is this a visual representation of the music? Which line is for which instrument? How is let's see. How is time portrayed? In this case, it's going from left to right, and pitch is going up and down. So the higher the pitch, the higher the line on the screen. When the pitch goes up, the line goes up. When the pitch goes down, the line goes down. Here's the violin starts. And short notes have have little dots, whereas long notes, as you can see, are lines. And you can also ask the students if they agree with the colors. Like, this is the oboe. Does it sound purple to them? The violin is red. Is red a good color? Do they like red? And again, all of these things, you can also just let them, you don't even have to plant these seeds in their brains. You can, but you can also just let them listen and see what they come up with on their own, because you might be surprised that they come up with some really interesting things that you or I never even thought of. And the last one is similar. It's another graphical notation composition, meaning that, well, you'll see what it means. Again, this one moves from left to right. And it physically shows in drawing the sound that you're hearing. You see it goes up when the pitch goes up. Okay, you get the idea. So these are our 9 examples, and I estimate that if you spend about a minute listening to each one and then a few minutes talking, should take you about 45 minutes. Of course, you can always spend more time if you have the time. It would be great. And there are also links, as I mentioned before, if you want to learn more about each person, you can you can do that, but that's all optional. The main thing is just to listen to each example for about 30 to 60 seconds, look at the painting, and see what your students come up with. And I hope you have fun. And see you for lesson unit 2.